I'm gonna let you lead this one because obviously this was your pick. But I don't know if I kind of want to ask first why
Yeah.
why that one. You know, out of the our list, like what about that one was like, you know what? He put it on the list. Let's do this.
Well, you did highlight in yellow, so you're like somewhat interested in it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've had the DVD sitting around for a
Hmm.
while, so it's like might as well watch it. Um,
I picked it since it was pretty short, 12 episodes in a movie,
yeah,
and it definitely does not follow the typical like anime story line kind of format,
definitely.
or it doesn't follow a traditional story in that kind of sense.
Yeah,
Like it's girls fighting in tanks. I mean, you're not gonna get that anywhere else.
yeah. Which I do have a few things about it that I don't think it's tropey per se, but I don't know. I find it how do I put this interesting. It's just how the story kind of played out for me. But when we get there, we'll get there.
So I back in the day, well, I kind of still do now. I play a bunch of like war themed games about like war vehicles, like War of the Tanks, War Thunder, War of the Warships, and those type of games, World War II era stuff. So when I got to anime, I'm like, what is this? Anime girls fighting in tanks? World War II tanks? What's going on? So I just obviously had to watch it. And funny enough, the developers behind World of Tanks and World of Warships, Wargaming, they actually provided assistance in the in the production of the show.
Really?
Like like tank models and specifications and things like that. I think sound effects too, but I didn't really hear much of that.
That's
I was like, that's pretty cool.
that is really cool. I had no idea. I didn't do too much background research, so obviously, but damn, that makes sense though. That makes a lot of sense.
Like, wow, the studio actually like reaching out to like company that deals with this stuff.
Yeah. Mm,
Like
yeah.
I was watching the credits and like, hey, Wargaming's here. That's neat. That's a game I play. Well, I think the appeal for me in this show, like, well, obviously the tanks, like the fan service for Girls with Panzer is not the girls, it's the tanks.
It is.
For
Yeah.
me, this show scratched that mecha itch. Like, I didn't have any mech shows to watch or didn't know any, but be- because of what Girls with Panzer is, it scratched that mecha itch I had.
Yeah, and I definitely like you. You know, I kind of noticed that about you because I think when we were talking about it, you mentioned some of the specific models, and I would ask some questions, and you'd say this or that, and I'm like, man, this man kind of knows his tank knowledge. I I don't really know, much about tanks or anything like that. So I went into it with a different perspective. I was just watching it as a consumer of anime, the show.
Right.
But and I won't
How do you
necessarily.
think it? Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I was going to ask, how do you feel it delivered on that as a non like or two amateur historian kind of person?
As far as like militaristic action is concerned, I mean, I don't know. Like, obviously, it's not teaching you about it, right? So it's not
Right.
like I know certain animes will have like the little blurbs of like information, like blah 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 blah, blah this and that. Like this show does not do that.
It has that in short, separate clips,
Short separate. Okay. Short.
but not in the show itself.
Yeah. Um, and also like I don't know if I there is I guess if I was more attuned to militaristic type stuff, like maybe I would understand the formations they took and stuff like that. Again, I don't know most of that, so I can understand that maybe they're emulating that, but I wouldn't be able to pick up exactly how faithful they are to certain things. I do know that there is a level of detail, with the names and stuff. They don't call it like cutesy things. Like it is the name of the tank, and unfortunately, I can't recall all of those, but even down to, I guess, the fact that they keep. I don't know how realistic it is. I'm pretty sure it's realistic that you keep your head out of the tank, because obviously it's kind of really hard to see, and that was just a sacrifice certain people had to make. And obviously in warfare, like those type of people may get sniped by a real gun, but obviously this is just girls and tanks, so that's not going down.
Yeah.
But there is a level of detail to it. Like I can obviously tell, like these people, they're not just shoehorning anime girls into whatever genre they can find. Like there is a level of care for the actual tanks and tank warfare. And obviously they have some fun with it, because like it's not just traditional set pieces like that you would think of for tank warfare. Like it's in their own town. Like it's I think I wanted to touch on this. Like it was just kind of funny to me. I don't think I really grasped it until the second rewatch that these are girls fighting in tanks on a battleship, like on a giant town or school battleship. Like what the fuck?
Hold on there.
Wait.
They
Oh no, they
fight
go on the town. That's right. My bad. I'm getting
They do
mixed up.
practice on the ship sometimes, though.
Yeah, that's right. I'm getting that mixed up. But still, like, just everything about it's absurd. Like the fact that they have to have the schools on the battleships. I think that's what it was. Yeah. And I don't know. Just okay. I guess that makes it a little more realistic with I guess the tanks fighting in the town, but at the same time too, like everybody's hyping up like the damage that they're doing to the town. Because I like the one scene, or he's like the gag guy where he's like, yeah, they destroyed my shop. Hello, insurance money. It's like
I can finally remodel,
right? It's like nobody's pissed. But yeah, no, it's pretty good, and I think the tanks look good. Of course, they look much better in the movie, but the CGI that they use is pretty good, and it's not too noticeable because obviously there's a higher quality, I guess 1080p showing of the thing, but I have the DVD, so it's 480p max. Slightly blurry.
Oh no.
Yeah, I know
No.
it's a good, like, it's good quality. It's a good way to watch. I'm sure I could have watched it better. Of course, I watched the movie and it's pristine, like 1080p regular self, but
because this show, the art style is very like clean and detailed. It's unfortunate you watch it in 480 DVD.
Yeah. Well, I will say this, like, it's not. I'm sure there's loss of stuff because obviously it's scaled down to be watched on a DVD, but it still looks pretty good. And of course, like I said, and maybe that's why I thought the movie looked much better. Obviously, because it's a movie, but at the same time, like the 480p probably cut some stuff. But again, it looked really nice in that standard definition. Just
Anything specific you have about the show?
I have notes for each episode. I don't know if we want to go case by case.
Yeah, we can go through them. They're
not like big notes. It's just like I noticed this, and either it was funny or like character stuff. Like I forget which episode it is. It's towards the end. It's probably like 9 or 10 when they're fighting the. Is it Russia or is it Germany? I forget. It's Russia, right?
The Russians.
Russians, yeah.
Yeah.
And that fight, I know we just got off talking about realism, but that particular fight irked me a little bit. Now I'll tell you why when we get there. We can just skim through the episodes and just go. So obviously, the first episode, introductory. I do not remember the girl's name, which is one reason why I was gonna ask you to lead. Like for me, they weren't too important. And again, I'll touch on this later, but there's, obviously there's a huge supporting cast, but at the same time, it's really not. It's focused on the main 4 girls, and then I guess kind of the student council, and then you have the other girls from the other countries, but at the same time, they're not really a big focus either, and so I don't care that much about them. Again, it's like is more of a pick your waifu, at least to me. And of course, like you said, a big focus is
Yeah, I
the
see
tank
that. Yeah.
warfare, right? So I mean, they have personality. Don't get me wrong. Like they have speckles of personality within each little segment, but at the same time, like you don't get enough because obviously you're focused on, the main character and kind of her crew, and even her crew doesn't get that much time because what's the sleepy one's name?
Mako.
Mako. Yes, like Mako gets probably I wouldn't say the most, but she gets like Mako, the flower arrangement girl, and the I guess the military otaku one. They get the most like I guess characterization in the show, as they grow and stuff. But then you have the boyfriend one, the boyfriend crazy one. She doesn't really get touched on at all, like at all. And of course the main character gets touched on because she's the main character, but we'll come back to that. And then following that, then you get the student council, and then you get to see their motivations for why they drag the main character into, doing Senshido. And then after that, like the rest of them are just, they're girls. They are the team. They are the supporting team. They don't have much to them. Like I think one thing, I know we were about to do episodes, but I just started talking about this. What was it? You have the gamer girls. Like there was just this aura of mystery to them because I would always see them in the intro every time the next episode would come on. And I was just so disappointed because it was like they show up at like the final battle of the this TV series, and they show up in the tank. And I will give the show credit; it was realistic because they got taken out immediately. Like they were new. Obviously, if they were just going in, popping off, and unless they had like experience in Senseido, like it was established that they had that experience. It's to make sense. But like, I think that was my thing with the characters in this show. Like they kind of were just there as like caricatures of various anime girl type things that you may like, and they just like boom popped off, and they were there for that little bit, and they get to join in the celebratory jump in the air freeze frame at the end of the show. But I mean, what were they there for besides I guess to add an extra tank and formation, right?
Well, they saved the school,
They took a mortar for the school. I guess that's one way of looking at it, right?
Martyr, yeah. A martyr.
Martyr. Oh yeah, martyr.
Martyr.
No, not mortars. Like, isn't it like one of the shells that you can shoot from a tank, like a mortar?
But that's a mortar.
Mortar. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know.
Mortar martyr.
They're a mortar martyr. Yeah. But
All right.
Yeah, I think of one thing, and look, it's not like I'm just a stickler for characterization and stuff like that. I can just turn my brain off and watch something, which I ultimately did. It was just like, if I'm going to, I guess, review it, that is something that is there. Like, there's no characterization, very limited, unless you're like looking at the main character herself. And I have a little bit to talk about her. But yeah.
Yeah, this show is that it can easily be that kind of show where you just turn your brain off and watch.
Yeah. But yeah, first episode, obviously it's the introductory phase. You realize what's her name? So I can refer to her by name.
Which girl?
The main character.
Oh, Miho.
Miho, yes.
It took me a second.
Yeah, see, like I'm trying to remember. Anyways, Miho, you get to know who she is. She goes to the new school because she wants to get away from Senshido because of, as of yet, not told her backstory, which I guess I can talk about. The fact that she was in the previous school, their sister, but instead of securing the win, she goes to save the teammate from drowning. And she wasn't cast out per se, but I guess she got a very bad scolding. I don't know, or I guess it's the shame of defeat. So she tries to get.
It's not part of their style. It's just not their style to give up victory.
Yeah, so she tries to get away from it, but then the girls in the school hype it up. Like the student council tries to recruit her. As you find out later, it's because either they win Senshido or they lose their school. But she eventually, I don't know, and I guess people, become friends that quickly. So I won't harp on that too much, but it was kind of interesting, the whole like, hey girl, I saw you and I thought you were interesting, and
Man, it's probably because I'm not a girl.
yeah, right. That's what I was thinking. So they get all cozy together, and then they go in there with her like they've been friends for years, and stand with her and hold her hand and try to fight the
Right.
student council. And I'll do it. I'll do it. Yeah,
I will say it's kind of interesting seeing a main character like in this type of like supposedly regular anime girl, but with PTSD.
yeah, yeah. Um, I think that's it for one, and then two is like they're going to search for the tanks. That's what episode two is about.
Hmm.
Um, and again, obviously it's anime, so I don't hold it to any standards of realism. But just watching these like little small, schoolgirls like dragging huge ass tanks out of submerged lakes or scaling mountains and shit just for tanks, it's like.
Hmm.
And then on top of that, the fact that all of this is located on a freaking ship. Like, what the fuck?
A giant aircraft carrier turned into a town.
Yes. Oh
Fun
yeah.
fact:
Oh
each of
god.
those carriers are based on actual unreal carriers, like World War II era carriers,
Oh, okay.
just really big.
Now I will say, when I looked at them, like obviously they had that, outside of the freaking island that is located on these ships. They did look very like realistic, like something you would have seen out of a war era type, I guess.
Yeah,
Ship. They're
'cause
not
they are.
battleships per se, or are they battleships?
They're aircraft carriers
Aircraft. Okay. Aircraft.
from World War II.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So I don't know. That episode was silly. That's really the only thing I have about that. It was just them, I guess, finding the tanks, and I don't know if they tried to start figuring out. Yeah, they tried to start figuring out how to use it and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
moving right along, episode 3. Now this is where it got interesting for me. I remember like this is the episode I kind of reached out to you about, and I was like, oh shit, the gangbang is happening. Because the other girls ganged up on the main, on Miho and crew. Which I thought was interesting because, I figured the initial like practice run, would just be most of the girls like flailing about and nothing, serious action going on. But they actually tried to employ a pincer with, Miho and them on that like
Yeah.
shaky bridge. And I was like, okay, well, like shit, I guess I underestimated these anime girls. Of course, they still lost, but it was just interesting that they were already employing like realistic tactics. I don't know how realistic it is for tanks to be able to like go over bridges supported like that, but by all means, like, yeah,
Yeah. I will. Short throwback to the beginning of the discussion is this show has a level of detail, a certain level of detail, with mixed pretty well with a level of absurdity.
yeah. Yeah, no, I won't fault it for that. It's just it's kind of funny because, like you said, it's like I said, that pincer tactic is I at least know that. I mean, it's not like that's just exclusive to warfare, but that was a good play. Gang up on the strongest member for success, and then take each other out. And then what better way to do that than to stick them in between two different tanks. But then it's just like wait, we're gonna move on this bridge like. Oh. And just various other goofy things. And I didn't talk about this at the start, but I did. So I watched it twice because I watched it the first time way back, and then I watched it the second time to get re-familiar with it.
Yeah.
I watched the dub, and I just looked at my notes, and Mako's English voice. Ooh, it's. I don't know how to describe it. I got used to it by the end, but it's just so. And I know Dole is her character. I know she's supposed to be sleepy, uninterested, like just undisturbed. But that voice, man, like she just sounded so hoarse and so deep. Like she's still a tiny schoolgirl. So her Japanese voice fits fine for what she is, but like
Yeah.
the English dub was just so interesting. Maybe I'll try to find a clip and just intersperse it like right here because
I've never heard the dub before.
the dub is interesting. I started to hate on it too quickly. It's not horrible. It's serviceable. It is not the greatest dub. It's no Yu Yu Hakusho, but it's pretty. It's not horrible.
Well, it is a show from 2012, so
Yeah.
things have improved.
Yeah. Moving along, episode 4. They fight the British.
Episode list pulled up, by the way.
Hmm.
I've got an episode list pulled up, by the way.
Okay, cool. Episode 4 is the fight against the British team. So,
yeah, scrimmage, yeah.
Which I didn't realize it, but again, I watched it twice. I didn't realize they never beat the British, at least in the confines of the show and this one movie. They never beat the British team. They've always lost to them, which I thought was kind of interesting. Because they lose this scrimmage, and then in the movie they pair up with the country girl team to fight against the Russians and the British, and they lose against them at the beginning of the movie.
That was Japanese, yes.
Oh, that was Japanese? Yeah, that's what I mean. They're like, almost feel like the Kanto region, I'm thinking. More countryside Japan. Or Osaka, maybe? I don't know.
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So, I just thought that was pretty interesting. Like, how strong are these British girls actually? What are they not telling us? Let me see. My notes. I think the only thing that was just a real interest. The student council girl. You get to see her trigger happy, like, she's played up as like the typical kind of like cold secretary type, and then you start to realize she's very like that's characterization. That's what I was talking about. You get to see more of her. Like she's very emotional, very like extreme, like fire, like just losing her freaking mind. Like, I'm not listening to you, Miho. I run this shit. You're gonna fire. And the whole thing with them like coloring the tanks, like
painting in random colors.
Yeah, random
Not
colors.
random, very bright and obvious.
Yes. This was the start. I made special note of the assurance frogman because I just love that joke. I don't know why he's like, yeah, destroy that shop, yeah. Like just him and his friends are popping off. Oh man, I wish it was me. And I think this is one of the few instances. So, like we said, the fan service is still there, just not as huge, because they do the uncle dance thing. They wear those skin tight like pink fish costumes, and it's a weird like 10-second little thing, but it is what it is. But and I made a note. I think effective showcase of how a leader can make an ineffective team effective, and I think the show does a good job of that. Like in a somewhat realistic sense, obviously, these girls have never piloted tanks before, and they're just now learning. And obviously the UK team or British team, however you want to identify them, they're way more attuned to this. They've been doing it for a while.
Right.
Obviously, all this and that, but Miho was able to take this group of vagabonds, and I think her whole thing is like she's very intelligent. She knows how to strategically place her units. She knows how to react in a situation. Like to make
very adaptive. Yeah.
So I think they do a very good job of that in a believable sense. And like she's able to pull a situation out of his ass. Now, I will say she's a little too meek for my liking in that same instance, because again, like you have the student council girl who's like, obviously very aggressive, very, I wouldn't say leaderish, but that type that would try to assume the leadership position and like, influences everybody else. But Miho's just kind of like, okay, girls, we can do this. Just, do this and do that. And which again, it's a bunch of schoolgirls. So again, that probably works for them, but
I think that's how I would say that's how she started out in the beginning. But became more stern about it.
Yeah, she came a lot more stern later on, but of course, in the beginning, she's still finding her feet. So, there's that. But yeah, I think that was a good pull away from that episode, just seeing that. But episode 5, do you remember the military otaku's name? I do not.
Were they in episode 5? I don't think so.
No. Like, do you remember her name? Because in this episode.
I thought you meant the gamer girls. Never mind.
Oh no.
Oh, that girl is Yukari.
Yukari, yes. So this is the episode where she infiltrates the American school. They're getting ready for the big tournament. I put real gangster in my notes. I don't remember what that's for. But I guess I guess it's just just how she kind of just runs up in there, just doing a thing. And I think these notes are from the dub version, so she may have said something retarded that was just hilarious to me. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. Obviously you can't have warfare without a little espionage, and the way they kind of put it in there is like, okay, I respect that. She just kind of goes in and does her thing, and I was thinking about it. I'm like, because in the dub or in the sub, I don't think she speaks English, and obviously, again, it's outside of the realm of realism, but I know they're going based off of countries. Everybody speaks. So I mean, the American girl, the main American leader girl, she does the exaggerated American Japanese, which is part of the course.
Well,
kinda.
I should also mention that all of the schools, even though they're themed on different countries, they're still all Japanese.
Ah, okay. I did not. Okay, that makes a little more sense then.
I'm 90% sure.
That makes more sense. For a variety of reasons. But
because it's a high school tournament.
Yeah,
it's not an international tournament.
That's true. Although the Russian girls are very believable. Very believable, especially in the movie when they just start like, I don't know. I guess they got a new girl. I'm not sure if she was from one of the OVAs or not, but her and the co-captain are like just conversating in Russian, and she's like, "Hey, stop that now." Yeah, but oh yeah, I made a note of like when Yukari was like in the school or whatever, and, like she's running away past all these girls. In my mind, I'm like, I'm tripping the hell out of her. Why did nobody like just stick their foot out? Let's something. Obviously not to hurt her or anything, but just like tie her up and be like, all right, what's your secret? What are you doing? Like, why are you infiltrating? Although there was a really sick burn, the boyfriend girl, and I know I'm giving
Sayori.
Sayori, is that her name?
Saori. Yeah.
Sao. She
Wait, what? Wait, what did you say?
Saori. Yeah, Saori.
Oh,
yeah. She what did she say to Yukari? She was like, "I don't think tanks are the reason you couldn't make friends. Maybe it was your haircut."
Oh yeah.
I was like, "Damn!" It's like, you don't have to be rude. Because she had like that haircut like her father. I don't know why punch perm is coming to my head. I don't think it was a punch perm. Maybe it was a punch perm. I don't know. And then they had this little awkward joke. It was like, okay for you. Oh yeah, that was the American leader with the student council president, and she said okay. Yeah, the American girl said okay, and then the student council president was like okay for you, and I was like, oh my god. And remember,
her name is the American commander's name is K.
So. K. Okay. Oh.
K-A-Y.
Oh gosh, there's more layers to this. Oh god. Yeah. And remember, I'm listening to this in dub, so it's like, oh gosh. Yes, her voice does not fit her either because obviously she's a lolly.
Wait, what? Oh,
the president. And the voice they picked for her is just, yeah. Yeah, the dub is a treat. It's not bad, but it's a treat. And I hit him with the Millennial Reverse Uno card. I feel like,
Oh,
yeah, there were some layers to these notes, and I wish I was a little more fresh because I could explain why I put that. Something happened. Oh, that's right. So I think the warfare actually starts, like the match actually starts in this match. And so you had the one girl from the American team that was listening in via their comms. And so to basically Miho picked up on this, and so to combat that, they used their cell phones to text each other. The real message. So they were talking over comms, but then they I guess group chatted each other, and I was like, that's sick. I like that. That added a more modern take to, I guess classic warfare, because I don't know how well their cell service is out there, but if they can employ that tactic, if they're using old school tactics to pick up on their communication, by all means, So I thought that was pretty cool.
that was neat. Yeah.
And then episode 6. Oh yeah, episode 6 is where I start to have some problems. So basically, I told you to always fight fair. Remember, she reprimanded the other girl for using the comms.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I know it's not warfare, it's sport, but at the same time, y'all literally got reconnaissance on the previous episode. It's the same thing. You're picking up on the other team's tactics.
That's true. I never thought of that.
And you were fine with that. You're like, oh, all fair in love and war. But now your team's doing it, and what's the problem?
What? I think it's not really war though. It's sport.
Yeah, it's sport, but at the same time, there's always been an established gain advantage by listening in on the opponent or gaining knowledge. Sure, it wasn't pre-learned knowledge, but it's still it was valuable knowledge. And it's not like they went and took off the threads off their tanks or something like that before the match started. They were just listening in onto their tactics.
Right.
Which I guess that also plays into the resource factor, because obviously the main school, all their tanks and stuff are old and from a previous era. And then, the American team, obviously, they have banks, so that's how they were able to even have that device and stuff. But at that point, for me, especially since, there was already established that reconnaissance was allowed, I didn't see too much issue with it. But I get it, fair fight, stuff like that.
I see that.
But then furthering that issue, obviously they didn't just blitz those girls to death with all of their tanks. She was like, oh well, we already kind of cheated, so let me only use the amount of tanks that they have against them. And again, I get it, it's sport, but for me it's you had already kind of, I think the tanks were already out there. She just told them to stand back because for whatever reason. And that was pretty much what allowed Miho, the little extra gap to actually win. And again, the main protagonist has to win. But I don't know, it was just kind of how Kay kind of handled the entire situation that episode, that just basically was here, I forget the main school's name too. I did not remember any of the names, but here main school. What's their name?
Urai.
Yes, Urai, here you go. Here are the keys to success. I'm going to limit my forces. I'm going to reprimand my girls for doing basic reconnaissance, It's come on.
The thing is, the rest of the team didn't know they were doing that too.
Yeah. So
that's one thing about it.
That is true, so. That's true. And then finally that episode kind of caps off with the grandma falling, and then you get, some characterization from Mako. Or it starts because, leading into the next episode, you learn her family died in an accident, and her grandma looks like her mother, and she regrets, that fight they had right before she died and whatnot, and so you get to learn a little bit more. I don't know if it ever explains why she's like just dead as a person, but
Okay.
yeah, you get a little bit of that. And again, like some of those issues I have with the show start to rear their head just because this is also so the title of this episode is about Anzio. Like it is about going up against Anzio. But tell me why you only get like the 5 seconds of, let's go girls towards the end, and then they beat them. And that's it. That's all you
I
get.
see. It's
Like,
an OVA. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so that fight is encapsulated in that Anzio OVA?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I didn't know if that was like separate or anything. Okay. Well, that's a little better, but it was just the fact, because the episode really focused on oh wow, I put her last name Nishizumi, but Miho. The main that episode really focused on why Miho is the way she was and why she felt the way she did about Senshido, saving that girl and all that other stuff, But they titled it, about Anzio, and you only get like 3 seconds, like, and again, that's in the OVA, so that's fine, but they could have titled it something else, or made you assume it was about something else, because obviously the title of the episode should be about the main meat. And yes, they search for the tanks to, I guess, fight, to continue to fight and be better. But, if you're going to say it's about Anzio, hype up Anzio. But, again, there's an OVA. So, it is what it is.
That's fair.
But moving on past that, obviously this is leading into the Russian girl, or the Russian team fight. So interestingly enough, and this is actually, I think this is for both dub and sub, which in the original broadcast, there's a particular scene where the Russian team is like marching off, and they sing that song. I assume you've probably seen this version, the original version. But for the version that they brought over here, that Sentai Dub owns, I guess they didn't have the rights to that song, so they basically cover up the girls' lip flaps, and they just play the Tetris theme song. And when I first heard that the first time, this is when I was watching the sub, I died, dude. Like, just out of nowhere, they're just marching, and then you hear and I'm like, what the fuck?
That's the first time I've heard of this.
Really?
Yeah, I never.
Yeah, look it up. Now, the interesting thing is too, like, you would think maybe it would stay intact for the sub version, but no, they replaced it in both the sub and dub versions on the disc. So, it just they're not singing, they're just riding the tank, and then the Tetris theme plays for that duration of that song, and then you cut back to everything else. But I died at that, like, just random Tetris theme. That was crazy.
Because of differences in copyright law between Japan and the U.S., prevented the original song Katusha being used in the English localization.
One second. Yeah, but you were, I guess you went and looked up about that scene. Yeah, so yeah, that was hilarious to me. And again, just unprovoked, right? I think that was the best part. Just randomly, I'm like, wait a minute, that sounds so familiar. That's Tetris, dude. Like, what the? Yeah. And I did go to just, I guess, briefly listen to the original scene, and it's pretty good. I guess that. Yeah, I was gonna say that's what I was gonna say. It seems to invoke, like, this sort of thing, marching to, victory or blah blah blah, that sort of thing. So, and again, really, I think I remember you telling me that, like, gotcha, yeah, but all historical. and I think too, like, I've been giving the show a lot of flack or shit, but like that's, it does well when it does it, like interspersing like these various, things about warfare, all these other things. Like they didn't have to do that march with the song, but like it sells the authenticity of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Oh yeah, but this is the episode that you learn that the girl's fate is like tied to winning the tournament. And then I put a little asterisk, like until the movie, that is. It's like, um, but yeah, you learn that the girl's fate, blah blah blah. The dub is hilarious because so the, I don't know what you call him, not an inspector, I guess a regulator or whatever, the guy who went to deliver the message about the school shutting down and stuff. Obviously in the sub he has an appropriate voice, but in the dub they gave him like this old man voice, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this is a younger guy, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it didn't sound right at all. It mismatched, but thankfully the guy's not in the show often. Like, I think that's one of his only appearances, and then, save the movie, he's kind of gone. You also learn that the Russian school is the school that won last year, which I don't think, yeah, Miho, yeah. I'm not sure if they even, no, yeah, because of me, I thought that, yeah, so they make that known. Yep, which is crazy, dude. Like 9 years of just straight beating. I just quit at that point. Like, like what? Like 9 continuous years. But and this starts, like, I think this was the gravest sin to me, like, for this show, because at this point, this is the Russian team quickly like laps them, like encloses them into a city, like surrounds them into one barn. Like, first of all the girls converge into one barn with all of their tanks. That in itself, Miho has already shown herself to be a good leader, has knowledge of, all of these things, and yet she allowed, I guess they were beating a retreat, but I mean, they got cornered into one barn, And I also understand, like, I don't know if it was cockiness or competitiveness, allowing them to basically have time to think, like, what do they want to do? Do they want to have a last stand or whatnot from the Russian team? But I don't know. I let me see. Was this episode 9 where they finally got out? Yeah, episode 9 is where they finally got out. So let me transition to that. But they're in the building, and there's some good, characterization here, at least for Miho. Bringing the team together or whatnot, and like rallying them for a final stand and such. You also see some very Japanese racist stuff, depending on if you find that funny or not. I thought it was hilarious just because I love Japan's like over exaggerated stereotypes of each country, because you see the Russian girls outside, like I forget what you call that dance, but where you like you get 90%, yeah, the Russian dance. I'm just like, come on guys. What is this, Street Fighter, where everybody's just an extreme caricature of where they come from. But anyways, but yeah, you get to see Miho doing the Anko dance with them, being like, yeah, this is how we're gonna rally. We're not gonna go down, and I think that was good. That shows her growing as a leader. And also instilling the the previous girl that ran away from Senseido just because which that was a bigger thing altogether, but she could have very easily fell back on those types of emotions, but instead she was like, we're going to do this, we're going to save this school, all these things. But then the actual scene happens where they leave, and for me, it's like, why are they allowing them to just leave out with like shooting them down like aggressively. Like a great strategy could have been to hit the treads. Um, like as soon as the first tank came out of the gate, they could have hit the treads. That would have enclosed them in there. They can't do anything. Sure, they maybe bust out the sides of the barn, but then you have to worry about the barn collapsing on top of the tanks, and then even then they have them surrounded. So there should have been no way that any of those tanks were able to leave that barn without the entire crew just being like defeated. So I don't. Wait, are you still? Oh, yeah, you're still. Yeah, like it just. That was a little too unrealistic for me. Like, I feel like there could have been other scenarios that they set up to make this work better, or to instill the same type of scenario where like they're cornered and they had to figure it out. But for me, like all of the tanks are in the barn. There is no way they should have been able to get out unscathed, or just like without utter defeat. There was no other thing. Like no matter how intuitive. And the thing is, there wasn't even like, they didn't even bullshit it, to be honest. Like there was no bullshit like pull it out victory or whatever. Like they literally just rode out and the other team let them do so. And I'm just like, that kind of ruins my immersion just slightly, because there's no way. There's too many different scenarios that these experienced tank, girls or whatever, tank teams should know how to do, because you've already cornered them. Like you got them that far, so how would you not know to, shred up their threads so that one gets stuck in the hole so the rest of them can't move, or to collapse the barn on them, or just a full assault from all angles, because they already had more manpower anyways. So if it was a war of attrition, obviously they would win, even if the other girls just went guns blazing. So I don't know, maybe there's something I missed in that. Again, I don't even think that's a sportsmanship thing, because again, like they cornered them as sportsmanlike as you can get. There was no cheating, no nothing like that. I guess the only cheating may be the girls weren't used to like the snowy terrain, but even then that's just a experience problem, not necessarily a cheating thing. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Yeah, and I think ultimately that's what they were going for, like the overconfident, favorite bullying the underdog. But again, I think there comes a point to like, it's a little too much. And I just looked at my notes again, like I compared it to, the match that Miho lost against them when she was, with her sister on the previous team with the family. And the Russians have no qualms about taking advantage, because obviously they shot down the flagship as soon as Miho left the ship to go save the girl. So it's not like, there's an issue there. So I don't really understand why, in this same instance, she kind of is not necessarily the right thing, but you know what I mean? It was more leaning like, okay, well, we did this, and, this was probably the right thing to do. And I'm just like, no, it's not. Like, you've already established to me that you're not scumbags, but you're going to do what it takes to win. So just shoot them down and get it over with. They lose their skull, oh well. But I know the story. I think the writers, or maybe not, but I feel like the writers just kind of wrote themselves into this thing, and they was like, oh, okay, yeah, well, we'll just let them out, and that's not, at least establishing how the Russians have already, portrayed themselves. It'd be one thing if the American girl did that, because she already established, she wants a fair, fight sort of thing. So that would have made sense to me that she did that, but it made no sense to me that the Russian team that were portrayed as cutthroat allowed, you know, the girls to leave out and, you know, eke out a victory. And one last thing about this episode, and this goes back to characterization. You know, these 8 and 9 were heavy on the student council, just because, you know, of evoking the emotion of, you know, them like loving their school and, you know, letting the rest of the girls know why they're even in the tournament for the first place. And it's not necessarily a necessity because, again, this story is about Miho and, you know, her, you know, coming back from that incident and, you know, becoming a competent leader and stuff. So the focus is on her, but you think that the student council would have had a bigger role to play in this fight, in this match, just because, you know, 8 and 9 is really centered on them and, you know, what they want and what they desire and them, you know, showcasing themselves. But all in all, like, they take out, you know, they do what they do any episode. Like, they take out a few tanks and then they get immediately taken down and there's no emotional response to it at all. They're just like, you can do it, Miho, you know, like they always have. Like, and it would have been nice, you know, if, like, obviously they don't have to take down the main flag tank, you know, that's the main character's job. I mean, they could, you know, they could, but I get that's the main character's job, but they're, even with them getting taken down, there could have been an emotional response from that, you know, like them like becoming, I don't know, just like depressed or just extremely sad. Like, I guess you don't need like constant sadness, but you know what I mean, just more emotion or more significance put on them because you already highlighted them for the previous 2 episodes, but then, you know, they're just kind of shot and it's like, okay, main character, have my energy, you know, Goku's charging up his Genki Dama, let's go, you know. But there was the sick shot, there was the sick, like, where they covered up the one tank in snow and they sniped the flagship. I was like, ooh. So a range of feeling for this show. I think that was the only major sin for me as far as like the action, was that whole thing with the Russians or the camp. But when it comes to like the tank warfare, they kind of do it good. And I was like that once, yeah, I was like that stealth shot. I was like, oh, let's go. But yeah, I don't know. Oh, mic's gone out. Testing. Testing. Better now? Okay, cool. Yeah, so I don't know if you feel the same or you see what I'm going with that, but that's kind of. Yeah, so it's just one of those things. It's not too big of a deal, but for me, I think that was kind of a major like oversight for this show. But after that, yeah. But after that, there's not too many sins. I don't think. The rest of it's just kind of, you know, parkour's finishing up pretty good. Oh, well, there's my other thing. So I put it in all caps, big and bold. Miho is the chosen one. And what I mean about that is, which, you know, that's just the style of the character writing for this show. But it's this thing of like, she's almost like a shonen protagonist. And I don't know if you understand where I'm going with this, but it's, you know, every time she wins, or air quotes wins, like the opposing team's like, you could just be or you could be this, or, you know, Miho does this or Miho does that. And, you know, I get it. Like, she comes from this prestigious family of, you know, Senshidou practitioners. and obviously she's very skilled in her own right, and she's growing to be a leader, and she's naturally have the capabilities. But I think, I don't know, she didn't necessarily do any one thing that was just like made her just seem that much better than, obviously she's better than her team, don't get me wrong, but like the rest of the girls, like for me, most of her victories were not, they were earned in the sense that she did like good tactics, but like she got a lot of teabagging too. Like the Russians teabagged her, the Americans took it easy on her. She lost against the British, and I don't necessarily think they did anything. So if that's anything to show you, but of course the excuse there is like the team was initially inexperienced, and so was she as a leader. And she almost still inked out a victory there, but there's this like almost, I don't even say shonen protagonist, maybe like Pokemon trainer type quality to her, where destiny is like guiding her, and she's doing her thing. Don't get me wrong, like I don't want to take away from the fact that they do good characterization of her as a leader, because I've already touched on that. But it's just more so like they hype her way up, like they hype her up a lot, I feel. And I know I may not be doing a good job of explaining it, but when I was rewatching it, like I kind of felt this way. Like I was like, yes, I get it. Like, she's good, but like, you see what I mean? Kind of, maybe, yeah. But yeah, going back to the episode itself, they get more tanks, and I think this is when the gamer girls come into the picture. And I also put the plot moves really fast, because in this same episode, it's the end of the Russian fight. They clean up a lot of plot threads for the individual girls, or at least her team. And I made a sub bullet and I put besides the hoe. They don't do anything with her. Like she's just there. She's just what's her name? Sorai? I put the the boyfriend girl. Yeah. Yeah, because in the same episode, the flower girl, I don't think we touched on her much, but she's accepted by her mother. Oh yeah, I guess I glossed over that, but she there was the whole subplot with that. She had the issue with her mother because her mother wanted her to do flower arrangements, but she wanted to do something more burly like tanks, and then they had the fallout. But now that comes full circle, and her mother's like, okay, your flower arrangement was exquisite and different, and stuff, and that was because of the experience she got from Senshidou. So that was the plot thread closed. I put Comatose girl, obviously Mako, accepted by grandmother, in a sense, anyways, So there was that. Yeah, I think that was the thing. It was kind of just a cutesy, like, like this is how they really feel if you have any misinterpretation about this relationship, or sort of thing. And maybe her grandmother was concerned about her too, just in her own like grumpy tsundere way. But this kind of like nice little that was the series. I was gonna I actually thought about that. Yeah, that was the end of the series. Yeah, when we get to the last episode, I'll talk about that. That was adorable though. And then I also put on here Miho is a lesbian. I think there's like the one scene where they're talking about she should get a boyfriend, and she's like, well, she like stutters for a little bit, and then she's like, well, I really love all of you guys. It's like, whoa. Not a real thing, but just, it's like, dang, girl. Let me see. Yeah, and then, again, like, some of this stuff was not as important as the others, so there's a few things in the plot that were happening that I didn't talk about earlier, but, there's the instance of, Miho's sister and her sub-lieutenant, who was kind of like just being like, extremely aggressive, and now they're getting like comeuppance against her, I guess, because also in this is still episode 10. The match against them starts as well. You know, and so now they're about to face her and, you know, kind of put her in the play, which that's true. She never gets knocked out per se, but I mean, their team loses in the end. Spoilers, not spoilers. So, I mean, there's that. But this is also the same episode, like I said, where they introduce the gamer girls and then they're just immediately mortar martyrs, and that's it. That's it. And you don't see them anymore after that. That's Oh wait, more sub bullets. Oh yeah, I was just talking about those girls. Hey, comprehensive. And really the notes are just stuff I touched on way at the beginning of this, so I'm not gonna go back through that. Although I did put that the gamer girls got more screen time than the maintenance crew, so there's that. But anyways, episode 11, so second to last. And I gotta say, I don't remember every specific, obviously, but the tank warfare was really good here. Really good. I think this was the most solid. Well, obviously, you know, it's got to be the most solid, but really good. They did a really good job here. Again, I'm still salty about Miho, I guess, at this point, because I put she's the savior of humanity, and just like Goku, all of her enemies become her allies, and I think that's why I keep drawing the parallels to the shonen protagonist, because I think we talked about this. You don't know too much about Dragon Ball Z, I guess, maybe Dragon Ball. Yeah, well, I mean, the basic thing with Dragon Ball Z is like most of Goku's like main villains at some point, not all, but like a good chunk of them up to a certain point become his allies. So yeah, Tien, Piccolo, Vegeta, right? Like they're all once major villains, or not even villains at, you know what I'm trying to say. Anyways, but then that's the same thing for Miho, right? Like most of the teams that she's fought along the way now, you know, they're just like, yeah, Miho, you can do it. She's the one. Like, oh my god. And, you know, they're just so invested in her match and stuff. And I'm just like, I mean, y'all had minimal interaction with this girl. You really, most of y'all cheated for her to win. I don't get y'all. What's wrong with you girls? I think y'all just think she's cute. And that's fine. That's fine. But, yeah. Oh yeah, and then I make a mention about the automotive club. That's not important. They oh, it kind of is though, because like I said, like the good action scenes, like the fact that the one girl was repairing the tank in real time as it was moving. I was like, what the? It's like, okay, I see y'all. And then I put engine stalls out and Miho repeats same action that lost her. Oh yeah. Of course, you get to, like I said, the comeuppance, so you get to see the 180, right? So I forget which particular tank that was, but it was one of the ones. The engine stalled in the water, but then you get to see the entire team, you know, like support her decision to go save her, you know, her teammates, and like they're able to do it successfully without, you know, the match ending prematurely. And I believe even that tank like scores some, you know, some kills or at the end or towards the end of the match. So it was a good, like, you know, like, okay, you know, Miho, you didn't make the wrong decision that time. It was just because of the environment and the people that you were with, and, you know. Oh yeah, and I think I glossed over it, like at the beginning too, there's even more like you didn't make a bad decision, because the original girl that she saves, that may have been episode 10, but the girl that she saves, you know, comes up to her and is basically like, thank you for saving my life, and, you know, stuff like that. So overall, just, you know, full 180, like, this is, you know, you made the right decision, and that will be the decision that will guide you to victory. It's because of who you are and, you know, what you believe in that makes you strong. That sort of message. And, you know, they didn't do it in an overly cheesy way. I think they did it right, you know. Have the girl who she originally saved come back and, you know, apologize and tell her how grateful she is, and then, you know, have it happen in the last match, as corny as that may be, but have it happen in the last match of the series, and then do it in such a way that it makes sense. Like if everybody's working together for a common goal, then everything will be all right. And because of Miho's leadership, they can do it efficiently, get out of the rut, and get back into the action. I will say though, at some point there was some kind of obvious. Oh, yeah, I think they were like hightailing some tank. It was not the flag tank, but they were hightailing one tank, like all of them collectively, and it was leading them somewhere. And then that's when you get the. I can't say what was on my mind, but it's the Giga Tank. Yeah, the mouse, and it's like for Miho to be the one, she fell for a very obvious trap. Like you let the thing lead you into these tight quarters against the mouse, like this indestructible ship or a tank. Which the way they deal with it is sick, but that's the next episode. But yeah, it was more so like, for as much crap as I give Miho, she has shown herself to be competent enough anyways, but she allows them to go all. Doesn't say a word, by the way. Doesn't pick up on anything. Sometimes things would happen to her, and she'd be thinking like, "This is strange," on the fly. But in this instance, like she was just like, "Yeah, let's gang up on this one insignificant tank." You know what I mean? So, I was like, whatever, that's fine, because the mouse is sick. Because I like the little scene, and let's just get into the last episode. I like the little scene where they're like, "Yeah, we're not scared of you." I think that was the student count, not the student council, the hall monitors or whatever you call them. They just started like firing on it, and then it just like, and I guess it's because I'm doing the episode by episode analysis that I didn't really touch on it. But I know you touched on the music earlier, but the sound effects are really good. They are really good. It sounds so good. And so just hearing like their tank like just get popped, it was so satisfying. It was kind of like, what did you expect? Like this big giant tank. Yeah. But I'm gonna try to. Oh no, I agree. No, I agree. Like when I got to the movie, like everything was. I think I told you too. Like everything is just better. Like just more budget, more everything. It just looked better, or it sounded better too. So, oh yeah, we'll get to the movie in a second. But yeah, the episode, this episode, we can't not highlight the combo they did where. Basically, one of them, I think that was the student council. The student council slid up underneath the mouse and then allowed one of their other tanks to like climb the top of the thing. And then I don't know what you call the barrel on the top that can rotate. Yeah, is that the turret? Okay, that's the turret. All right. So, and basically just kind of jammed it in one place so that they couldn't like target it, and then allow Miho to like whirl around from the back and like take it out of commission. I was like, that's so sick. That is so sick. That was a good like, and again, it feeds into this like, I guess the action and stuff, and not even just the action, but like the teamwork that the team has put together is really actually showing fruit, and they've already shown creative solutions to situations. The Russian fight being an exception, but they've shown, well, that's not true, but you know what I mean. They've shown creative ways of like winning, and so that was just super sick to me. That was like the one like I was like, okay, I'm with this show right now. When they did that, that was super sick. And I think the only there are a few inconsistencies, but I've done inconsistency so much, I'm not gonna like just harp on it. I think there's like one point where the rabbit tank was close to a big tank, and Like it waited until the absolute last moment where it could go down before it shot it down, and I didn't really understand why, but I was just like, it's okay, it's fine, it's fine, it's small thing. I did find it interesting, so I didn't touch on this earlier. So obviously the girls for each tank are kind of like their own different archetype of girl, and so there's the I didn't touch them at all, but I guess the historical ones, and they really I like their designs at least. I mean they don't get much outside of they quote a lot of Japanese history, but I kind of felt like they focused on them a lot as being like one of the more competent teams, or rather one of the more competent tanks on the team. But interestingly enough, the teams that lasted towards the end was the volleyball team and the mechanic teams, and I was like, whoa, that's kind of a role reversal, because I was completely expecting that team to be they got highlighted more as the better tankers, I guess, or having actual legitimate interest prior to being on the Senshido team. Like them and the student council team, they played the pivotal role of being the crutch underneath the mouse, so obviously they got their due. But I don't know why I was so interested. I know it doesn't really matter, but it was just like the volleyball team and the mechanic team. Really, like the mechanic team didn't get anything until here, and you probably would have been hard pressed to realize that was the mechanic team unless you were paying attention. I feel like the only thing that distinguishes the mechanic team from like that other random group of schoolgirls that are just kind of inconspicuous, like they don't even have anything special to them, it's the fact that you have some, I guess, tanned or darker skinned girls on the mechanic team. But it's like, okay. Then the volleyball team. I'll even put their tanks, the Tiger and the Type 89. So, oh, what? Really? Wait. So Porsche made tanks at one point, or still make tanks, maybe. I didn't think so. That's crazy. Huh. Well, I guess they Tiger P. I like that name, Tiger P. That's sick. Um, well, I guess the even if it wasn't successful in real life, it got its shine here, I guess. So there's that. Cause I forget if it was the Tiger, the Type 89, that held off the rest of the older sister's team before they could get to Miho and her, but one of them played that pivotal role of just blocking the entrance. Then I forgot how the other one got taken out, but again, great tank action, and of course that final like fight between like Miho and older sister, that was pretty good. I don't know, I preferred the mouse and a few other scenarios early on in the fight, but the final fight was pretty good. It was a good final fight. Although I put a note here. I thought it was kind of like a tie, because I mean, Miho's threads were like tore up, so she wasn't moving anywhere, and I figured like immobility was the main thing that would make your flag go up. Maybe it's just total annihilation of the tank. I don't know, but it was like, yeah. So I was just like, whatever. Again, one of those small things you notice when you're, I guess too, I was watching this to like analyze more so than just, like I said, turning my brain off, because when you turn your brain off, I think it's just more enjoyable that way. But if you analyze it, there's like little small inconsistencies like that. But that's pretty much it. And then and then the school is saved thanks to the Miho girls. That pretty much wraps up the series. Oh, of course, they do the little parade back through the town, and then yes, the grandma. And Mako looks at her grandma, and then she just starts like just dancing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's adorable. I did find it hilarious that obviously for each character, like when it got to the end, and they're looking out at the crowd, they get like a loved one. So of course for Flower Girl, she sees her mom and the apprentice. For I still forget their name, so excuse me on that. But Military Otaku, she sees her dad and her mom, Mako and her grandma. But for is it Saori? Jesus. Saori, she sees the fraud men. And I just thought that was hilarious. Yeah, it is the fraud man for her part, and I'm just like, is that a clue to her future? There's some hidden connotation there. But I think that also just kind of speaks to the fact like she didn't get developed at all past I am Miho's friend. That's it. That's her gimmick. That and her lust for a boyfriend, which I thought was kind of interesting because being in the main character circle, you thought she might get a little characterization, but she didn't really get anything, and I'm not sure she gets anything for any other thing in the series. Definitely not the movie, but yeah. But I guess to wrap that up before we go to the movie real quick, I don't know. I know that was I wouldn't say exhaustive, but that was basically a very detailed like description of each episode and the entire series as a whole. I enjoyed it. First watch was pretty good, and second watch was good too. Of course, again, I watched it with the mindset of I'm going to talk about this, and so I analyzed it a little deeper than I probably would have if I just watched it raw. But certain things, that's kind of true and it's not true, because again, like the thing with the Russian fight, like for me that was just like, are you serious? There is no way. Right. And then other things, they're just small little nitpicky things, like me just trying to find something interesting to, bring light to. I thought that, the character theme for Miho, just her growth from like being despondent about the fact that, she did that to her family, that shame she brought on the family. And then slowly working her way back with a bunch of vagabonds, and initially saving her school, and becoming a competent leader. Like, for as much as I was hating on her being similar to Goku, like, she actually showed, competency, like leadership, tactics, adaptability, like, things that you would need in that role, especially, in tank warfare, being able to effectively place her units in places to, use them, and creativity at that, like that goes without saying. Like, just the scene with the mouse alone just sold me so much, because I just thought that was an incredibly awesome solution, unconventional solution. Obviously I don't know if that would really work in real, it probably wouldn't work at all, but for the confines of the show, like that was extremely good. And then there were little scenes I didn't talk about, like where one of the tanks, like I think this is like one of the first matches, maybe they hid in a part of the town where they could come from the underground, like they lifted up the gate. Yep. Yeah, like just very creative uses of like tank warfare, tight corners, fight, all that sort of stuff. Like I can't fault that, and the CGI is pretty well done, for like you said, a 2012 show. There are some instances where obviously I noticed that Miho had taken a trip to another dimension, but like it wasn't bad at all, and I think they did a fantastic job with it. as a first for the series. I'm not sure. This is not based on a light novel, is it, or is it? Is it original? Okay, it's probably a light novel, but okay. Well, even in that, like, I don't know. I think for the subsequent stuff, like the movie, I'm not gonna be as detailed because I didn't do notes for that one. But like I think they cleaned up. Wait, what'd you say? That's interesting. Well, I think they definitely cleaned up some of the the more like inconsistent like moments that kind of were just like really or stuff like that. And I think at the point of the movie, um, Miho's more believable as that Goku character to me. And the thing is too, like she loses, like again, like she's never beaten the British team. Like she's great, but she can't pull that out of her butt. You know what I mean? So she still lost there. Which they're still like tight races, but she's believable as a main character, I guess. I would like her to be a little more sterner. Like she does get sterner or more stern, but she could, just be a little bit more leader like, more affirmative, more aggressive, but for an all girl, a high school girl anime, it makes sense. So I can't fault it too much for that because I mean, at the end of the day, they still have to be cutesy high school girls because that's what they are. And you have the particular trope for the cool icy types. So I know I've rambled on, but do you have anything to add to that exhaustive? Yeah, I don't know. I was like, I mean, for what it is though, there's stuff to analyze there. It's not just junk, It's a good show. And I would recommend it if that's of somebody's interest. So yeah, if you don't have anything to add to that, we can go on the movie. Which well, we'll do it off the top, man, because I don't have notes for it.